Disney dropped their new Star Wars show today, Ahsoka, and I'm kind of in the middle on everything on this. I mean, I'm not going to be some of those people who say, like, this is the worst thing ever, but I'm also not going to be like the Star Wars simps who basically say 12 out of 10, this is the best show ever since the last Star Wars show or anything like that. I mean, the reason I'm kind of in the middle is there was some stuff I liked and other stuff I didn't like, but other things I just felt was kind of boring. I mean, a little background. I'm not really a huge Dave Filoni fan or anything like that. I mean, I watched the first couple seasons of Clone Wars, but I never really watched Rebels. And I know this is supposed to be largely based off of Rebels, but I still put myself maybe just above the casual Star Wars fan who's maybe only seen the movies and that's about it, because I do know a little bit more background on this.
From a certain point of view.
The show starts off with the rebels trying to find a map to Luke Skywalker so he can come back and help them beat the First Order. Wait, no, that's the wrong thing. No, that's the Force Awakens. Oh yeah, this one's different. This is the remnants of the Empire that are actually looking for a map to the location of Thrawn so that he could come back and then reestablish the Empire for them. And for the most part, I thought it was okay. I mean, if they're going to copy with something, I mean, that's the most successful Disney Star Wars thing that they've made. So I guess they're going to copy that as well. And the starting of this, it was actually trying to evoke the ending of Rogue One with the whole hallway scene with Darth Vader. And I thought it was okay. It just didn't quite have the same impact as that scene because, I mean, these are new characters that we're not familiar with as opposed to seeing Darth Vader. I thought the lightsaber fights in this show were overall pretty good, but there were a couple moments that I kind of took me out of it. The first fight scene with Ahsoka, she was fighting 5 different droids, and you can tell that there was moments where the stunt people playing the droids had to kind of hold back because Rosario Dawson was kind of a little bit behind on the choreography or something like that. I don't know if it's necessarily her being too slow or if they just didn't choreograph it right to actually make it look good or something like that without the stunt people having to hold back. But either way, that kind of stuff stood out to me. Even though I can tell they were trying to edit around it, it just still didn't sell it to me. And then there was also another scene with her at the end of the second episode, which I thought that fight was overall decent, but there were some moments where she would do the stereotypical thing with the 2 lightsabers where she would block with both of them as opposed to blocking with one while attacking with the other, which is what someone would actually do in that situation. I'm not going to give this too much flack though, because that is kind of a trope when you have a character with like 2 knives or 2 swords or something like that. But either way, I mean, I would have given it more points if they would have actually better utilized having 2 different weapons. So I think it's fair to knock points off for not doing it the proper way, or at least the way that would work a lot better. Like I said before, I'm not super familiar with the characters from Rebels, so I don't know if personality-wise if they actually match up too well. I don't think the performances were too bad. I mean, I think they were serviceable for what they're doing. Just nothing really stood out to me as great, but nothing I thought was too bad and took me out of it. The one exception I would say would actually be Rosario Dawson's character, because that's actually a character I'm familiar with from Clone Wars, and I thought she seemed a little too like stiff in this one and disinterested. I think they're trying to go with like kind of the old stoic veteran type thing, because from the events of the Clone Wars, like at least early on when I saw Ahsoka, she was obviously a lot more youthful. She had more of a spunk about her. She was more humorous and things like that. And now she just seems like a completely different person. And I think what they're going for is basically she's a tortured soul or someone who's actually experienced so much trauma in her past and it's changed her. And I can understand that to an extent. But at the same time, Obi-Wan has kind of gone through the same thing. And even then, if you look at Obi-Wan in episode 4, he still had a lot more of a personality about him than what Ahsoka does here. So I think that's kind of like, I'm not going to necessarily blame Rosario Dawson for it, because I have seen her emote and actually have a lot more personality and roles in the past. So I think what it is just kind of bad direction, or maybe just the script didn't give her much to work with. I think Ray Stevenson did a pretty good job for what little screen time he has. My one worry, though, is that they're just not going to give him a ton to do within this show. It feels like he's just going to be kind of like a tertiary villain for Ahsoka to go up against later on. Just someone to give her a challenge in a fight, but ultimately she's going to prevail, which is kind of sad because, I mean, that just wastes Ray Stevenson, because he has the potential to be a good villain in a Star Wars project. And obviously now, since his early passing, we're never actually going to get that opportunity. So maybe just enjoy what we're going to actually get with him. Some of the things I really didn't care for was just kind of the overall story so far, because like I said, it just seems like a rehash of The Force Awakens. Nothing really exciting about it. I mean, it's just kind of like, here's a device. You need to take this device to someone else. It's nothing spectacular, but at the same time, it's nothing really terrible either. It's just kind of is what it is for the most part. One thing I really thought was kind of stupid though was just kind of that speeder bike scene towards the start. I mean, you got Sabine who's riding down this highway or freeway on it or whatever, just so she can do that slide thing underneath the X-Wing. And I thought that was kind of stupid because I was thinking, since when do they have freeways in Star Wars? I mean, she's on a hover bike. Why does she need a freeway or anything like that? Because I mean, all it was is really just set up so they could block the road and she can do that slide underneath it. Because if it was just like any other Star Wars movie or show where it's just empty desert and she's just going on a speeder bike, well, then she would have just gone around the X-Wing. So this whole thing was set up literally just so they can do that one scene, just to try to say like, oh, look how cool she is. And when you actually get to the end of that freeway, it's literally just goes out into the desert and nothing else there. I was like, oh, what's the point of that? Why did they build that for? I really have I don't know. I mean, let me know in the comments, has there actually been anything else like that in Star Wars, like just a road on the ground or whatever? Because I was trying to think and I couldn't remember seeing anything like that. And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room, which is the ending of the first episode. I mean, I know this review is kind of like for the first two episodes, but the ending of the first episode is one thing that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And I can understand why. And I actually agree. I think it's kind of ridiculous. And there's going to be a little spoiler right here if you don't want to actually know. So here's your warning. I'm going to go into a little spoiler at the end. So 3, 2, 1. All right. So right now you have Sabine who's fighting. I forget the person that she's fighting or whatever, but then she gets stabbed through the torso or whatever, and that's kind of the end of the episode. Then the start of the episode 2, she basically is in a hospital. I mean, not a bath to tank or anything, but a traditional hospital, and she's fine. And I'm just thinking, like, how does she survive that? I mean, I know it's Disney Star Wars, so they're not going to be the realistic lightsaber thing where if you got stabbed through the torso, realistically it'd probably cause your torso to explode. I mean, there's a lot of science behind that, but that's probably what would happen. And I know they're not going to do that, but the fact that she just survives that, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when we see Qui-Gon Jinn die of the exact same way. And it just feels like, oh, we're not ready to kill off this character who is from Rebels because she's a key part to this new one. So, I mean, I know there's plot armor or whatever, but I think if you wanted to have that fight end where they get separated, but this bad guy, she gets the device, and you should have just maybe had it where they got separated some other way or she escaped some other way. The second episode was a lot like the first one, where you just kind of had a MacGuffin chase for something different, and then like broken up with like some periodic action scenes to it. But one thing that I really have an issue with the dialogue scenes is, like I said, the performances were okay, but the dialogue was actually really stilted for the most part. Like one character would say their line, and then the next character would respond a couple seconds later, and then that other person would respond to them. I mean, it felt like they had like an earpiece in, and then like someone was whispering the lines to them between each one. I mean, I don't know why they did it that way. I mean, I can't imagine that it was a directorial choice. I mean, maybe there was some other reasons why they did that, but it was just very bizarre. And that's just kind of like the whole thing. I mean, I hope it gets better as the show goes on, but I don't know with this. That's why overall I'd probably give this a 4 out of 10. I mean, it wasn't like anything spectacular. I mean, it was a very mid show with just some things that kind of knocked it down a little bit in my book. Even like the few things that I did enjoy about it aren't enough to actually elevate it beyond this, like that very mid safe point. But let me know what you think about this show in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.